Alright guys, it's Dan here, and this is a follow-up video to the unboxing I did about a week ago. I got some requests to take a more in-depth look at a book I received, and that's what this video is about. We're going to take a look at it. I've had some time to look through it myself, do a little bit of translating, and it's really interesting, so let's take a look. So as you can tell, I've already removed the dust cover from the book just because it makes it a little bit easier to handle when we're going to look through it. But as you may notice here, we have this little separate ribbon thing at the bottom here. The design is very thoughtful because when it's perfectly lined up with the bottom of the book, it matches the design of the lower half of the Zaku perfectly. And when you slide it off, there you go. So that's very clever. So obviously on the front we have a full color image of, what's essentially on the book, and on the back we have the Xeon logo. This is from SoftBank Creative, and the price of this book, I believe, is referenced here at the end of the UPC code. It's listed at 2,700 yen on HLJ right now, although it is currently out of stock at the time of this video. There are a couple books in this series, including the Unicorn, the GP-01, the Jim, the Victory Gundam, and the Zeta Gundam. I believe there's also a book on the RX-78-2, although it seems to be out of print. At least at the moment, it's not even on the HLJ website. If you look for these outside of HLJ, I've seen them marked up to like $80, so just be careful, where you're looking when you go to buy one if you do want one. And okay, let's just get into the book. During the original unboxing of this, I wasn't sure who the mechanical designer was, and I actually had to go to the back of the book, which I didn't realize that the designer was credited back here. But the designer, and he's done, I believe, all of the Master Archive books, is Kiyoshi Takigawa. And he did all the mechanical design for this book. And this book really, it seems to be aimed towards like mecha nerds, particularly, because it is it's robot porn all the way through, more or less. So let's just start from the beginning. I have translated some of this using just Google Translate on my device. With translating using something like that, there's always something that's lost in translation. So you're left to interpolate a little bit what the meaning of the passages actually says. But what I basically read for the most part, and I didn't start back here, I started on the mobile suits, is it just talks about the fictional history of the mobile suit, how there are varying attributes that change from suit to suit, like they used a more powerful generator, or they went with a lighter weight armor, or they added more verniers, or that sort of thing. In a lot of ways, this reminds me of the technical readouts from BattleTech, which I read a lot as a kid because I got them cheap, and I could just sit there with my breakfast cereal and read through them, read about the giant robots, and that shit was cool to me as a kid. This is the same thing. The only difference is it's in a language I can't read, so it's somewhat more difficult and frustrating to get through it. But I do like pretty pictures, and this book has a ton of them. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bring this up to the camera, because if you look at these illustrations, especially the black and white ones, you'll actually see the pen marks, the pencil marks. These are all hand-drawn, or at least they're drawn with a, like a Wacom tablet that, tracks individual brush strokes or pen strokes. They're really quite beautiful, quite striking. Here's the back of a Zaku too. For example, if you look inside of the bulbous shoulder armor, you'll see, the individual lines from shading. Same thing with kind of the sketchy outlines of some of the armor plugs here on the back of the skirt. And there are some interesting variations between some of these models where you'll see like some of them have more angular thighs and other ones are very rounded. But there are also a lot of common design elements like these little weapon hard points on the skirts. So because of their consistency, I'm led to believe that this was drawn on a computer, basically, and some elements were copy-pasted between designs. You're going to notice a lot of similarities in designs as well as you go through the book. And it covers a pretty wide selection of mobile suits throughout the Universal Century within the Zaku line. Here we have like pretty much the prototype Zaku 2, which definitely features the color scheme of the Zaku 1, along with the rounded shoulder design. This is a really good reference too if you were to, say, for example, want to, do some work on your model kit, and you want to, reference some design elements. You could very easily go through this book and, figure out where certain design elements were implemented and, what they did. Here's a classic Zaku 2. So we can see here on the thigh armor, this is very reminiscent, to me at least, of how the armor is shaped up on the RG model. I don't know if this designer had some role to play with that design, but there were also some callbacks, like the shoulder seems very reminiscent of the original UC designs. A lot of just molded in detail here that I would love to see in a model kit. Let's see here. These are both the F-type. I can never remember if it was the F or the J that was space or land. This is the S-type. This would be, I believe the S-type was the version that Char used. Yep. So if we look here, this is the back of the S-type. Now if I flip, see, a couple pages back here to the F-type, so there's S with the custom backpack, and there's F. Right, something's not right here. Are those backpacks different? Yeah, I guess they are. They are illustrated differently. The verniers changed position, I think. Maybe they don't. Maybe I'm just looking at the wrong thing. Now the markings, this is really interesting. If you look at the markings, they're all actually in very clear English, except for there are a couple weird things I noticed. For example, where's one that refers to the shield as SHEELD, and one of the E's is lowercase for some reason. So maybe that's on the next page. Yes. There you go. And this dark one down here. Come on, focus, please. SHEELD. But generally, they're pretty good. They seem to reference things that you would expect to see on a large military vehicle about how to properly deal with things, and the fact that it ejects hot gas out of the nose, and there's high voltage in certain areas. There's one warning label on here that seems to indicate that the mono eye emits hazardous radiation. Yeah, it's actually this square one up here. It says danger. Laser emitters are included. Instruments in the mono eye, quotations. Housing produces radiation when energized. Do not stare into the beam or view directly with optical instruments. Eye protection required. So when the Zaku threateningly energizes its eye, and it makes that sound that we all know and love, it's irradiating you. It's no wonder the Federation felt they needed to develop mobile suits of their own. The Zeons have eye lasers. Now this, I mentioned in the unboxing, I looked at the Recon Zaku. Please refocus camera. That would be nice. Sometimes I notice if I move something around really rapidly, it'll refocus it. That's why I'm jiggling things. I'm not having a spasm. That's intentional. I was reading a copy of Hoppy Japan, and I noticed a builder had built this, and this was probably like 6 months ago, out of like one of the Thunderbolt Zaku kits. And this design featured in this book, it looked remarkably Thunderboltish before I think Thunderbolt was really a thing. And the modeler that eventually made the model, the custom model, did an amazing job capturing the detail of this mobile suit. And then he went on later to do the flipper version here, which kind of looks like one of the Scope Dog style mobile suits, or whatever they are. I don't know if they're mobile suits, if they're Votoms, whatever they're called. And like I mentioned earlier, there are some changes to the design. For example, with the thighs back here, notice how angular they are. Same thing here. Very reminiscent of like the Zaku F2, which had very kind of rectangular thighs. And if we go back to the original... Come on, camera. Stop doing this. Okay, fine. If we go back to the original Zaku, they're very round. So there is some variation within the mecha design if you're willing to look at it. I mean, aside from the obvious fact that this thing is a different head and some like shoulder cameras or some crazy radar backpack, there is a lot of detail captured in here. I'll admit, I didn't go through and translate all of this. I really just kind of picked a few passages and read through them just to see what they were saying. And they're almost all written from the perspective of like a report being written about the development of the mobile suit. Like it'll mention specific names about, this mobile suit designer and how he was crucial to the implementation of this new thing on the mobile suit. So if you're into that sort of thing and you want to read, whatever lore is in here, I mean, you could certainly do that. It's all in here waiting to be digested to someone willing to sit down and translate it. I would really like to see something like this that was, translated online, so I didn't have to keep pulling out my little translator to actually read what it was saying. I was looking at this design. So it's Shin Matsunaga's. It's his custom mobile suit. I'm wondering if this is the one based on Dozel Zabi's Zaku 2. I believe there was a Master Grade released last year that looked like it was like a Zaku 2 that he was using for Dozel. Maybe it was after Dozel got big zammed. I don't know. I haven't translated this one, for example. Come on. Nope, not going to do it. I guess we're focused in down here now. A lot of these kind of have very similar, marking setups. Obviously, with the custom units, we get, their custom icons. So the White Wolf says Weisserwolf. So White Wolf in German, I'm guessing. I don't even know if they spelled Weisser correctly or not. And then we have his other wolf head over here. But a lot of these, the decals are all the same. Some of them are in different colors. That's interesting. I haven't seen the Zimmered design with the motors written in it before. So that's new. Sometimes some of these decals have really interesting notes on them. Like one of the earlier ones, yeah, there's Jack Here logos. Like there's just some dude walking around with the floor jack waiting to do oil changes. Somehow I don't think that the mobile suit would need to have its feet jacked up. Here we go, Johnny Ridden, kind of the same thing. And there always seem to be two of these because of just the quantity of decals present on these designs, that they go through and they select one set of decals and they kind of call out what each of them are, and then they go through and call out a whole nother layer. So this is, I don't know if this is a direct challenge to Kotoki, like one up this, but it would be interesting to see a model kit released with all of this present on it. This one's clearly looks like a prototype Gelgoog. And then when we get further back in here, like this is Garma's Zaku 2 because of the head Vulcans. I guess it's the FS. There's another FS here. I don't know who this pilot is, although I have seen this color scheme before. We have the FZ, which is Bernie's Saku. And they actually have a whole separate page for, and the one with the Stahl helmet, the helmet that's modeled after the World War II era German helmet. There it is from the back. There's the F-type with, I think it's the mine layer backpack. And then this is interesting. It actually shows detailed illustrations of the head, the mono eye setup, and how it fits within the head. So you can actually see the mono eye is actually like a compound eye. There are 3 different lenses in there. Just rotate for, I'm guessing, different distances. We also get breakdowns of the torso. There are some really nice illustrations of the arms, pilot suit. Kind of more mechanical design. Unfortunately, this one's like right in the center of the page, and there's no real easy way to really get in there. The backpack. I really love this illustration of the arm, the joints on the individual fingers, and kind of how like all the little elements kind of work together. It's rather nice. Yeah, here's more of the arm. Even the shield here, kind of like some of the recent high grades, maybe even the real grades, have kind of blocky things that you strap over the shield to hold bazookas and things. Well, they seem to indicate that the shields actually have those things built into them. Same thing, mechanical designs for the legs. Seems like we're focusing down here now. Then the weapons in some more detail. All sections on the weapons. And that's it. So I've really enjoyed my time with this book. I think I'd really like to track down a copy of the Gundam book, just because Gundam. Although right now it seems like that book is particularly difficult to track down at a reasonable price. But they seem to be a good resource. I've definitely looked at this with the intent of maybe picking up a Zaku at some point and trying to implement some of the details featured in this book in that model. It's a good reference. It's a little frustrating, obviously, because I don't speak the language. If you do know some Japanese, yeah, definitely pick it up. If you can't read the language and you're okay, translating things paragraph by paragraph, because I mean, let's face it, when you photograph a chunk of text with like Google Translate, for example, it can kind of get hung up on the quality of the image that you take, and with a book like this where it's at a curve, that throws the sensor off even more. But there's definitely some interesting stuff in here. I just wish it were in English, but I mean, that I could say that about a lot of things that are released for the Gundam franchise. Take a look at it. If you happen to run across one at an affordable price, I'd say pick it up, especially if you're a Zaku fan. And if you're not a Zaku fan, well, there's other books in the series that you could definitely track down out there. So I hope this video was informative to those of you that were interested in the book. I'm definitely going to refer to it in the future, and hopefully this has convinced some of you to either pick up the book or maybe look for one of the others. So thanks very much for checking out the video, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves. Dan out. Thanks for making it all the way to the end of the video. If you haven't already, like, comment, and subscribe.